So here's what it feels like when there's a slow roll of means of communication sort of monopoly takeover, right? You have organic. Here's the cell phone. Steve Jobs hands you the cell phone. You're standing out in the field watching Tame Impala or MGMT in the 2010s with your cell phone, and you're having mind-blowing, expanding time of your life. Everyone's talking to each other, right? Prism is placed on prismatic data systems, would have been bulk collecting data on all these organic clicking on stuff and taking a psychological survey necessarily over long form time effectually. In hindsight, that's all it was. And agreeing to handshake a monopolization of the means of communication necessarily. At which point, the end of 2012, AI was placed on prismatic data systems to riff on bulk collection. So we see foundational psychology at all vectors and forward, a massive overtonnage, way over Darwin's print naturalistically of gay, homosexual, LGBTQ generalistic refracted off of baseline spectrum as a direct result of consuming AI sorted feeds that motion false equivalency coupling to create FEC tables, false equivalency couple tables of unlike value strings that when shown unlike to the emotion or motion it generates, and in branch chain continuum it generates complex behavior, geolocational motion, brand preference, actor, celebrity preference, political preference, drug preference, blind compliance to unnecessary healthcare mandates. And we saw during COVID, so here's your precedent of trust for this as a legitimate control schema, more or less since 2012, the great filter set on prismatic data systems. You have not organic talent proliferated to the verified user status and blocked organic users that fall outside of the desired template, linguistical, satirically, or otherwise, for content at the apex of the zeitgeist to be. Then you see verified user status access kind of across the face of it shut down predictively and well before any word of COVID had come to light in the news in 2019, 2018. 2018 rolling into 2019, you see verified user status predictively shut down as they're priming communications for a intentional event. Mossad, Epstein, Gates, Fauci, NIH, Wuhan, China. So directly preceding COVID, you have a influence operation that selectively and targetedly to make compliant to Mossad, Epstein, Gates, Fauci, NIH, Wuhan, China directive blackmail. And you go down to the island and you think, well, can't all these rich people fuck kids anywhere they want to in the world? Why do they have to come to this weirdo's island? Well, it's a vetting process that when you agree to shake that hand and have this material upon you produced because you perform an act on camera, then you're given celebrity status, power, money. Because you can be controlled. And not necessarily all this, some tempted down and for the experience of the thing. So, but, that happens directly before COVID. And L-cysteine, for the entire duration of the event, a completely non-toxic complete mitigating factor that is, when you chew raw garlic, 69 cents. So the however many billions of trillions of and million dead people. So genocide, active methodical denial of complete mitigating factor while propagating a market of disease through no mitigating factor for such a long period of time. It was $46,000 to run a specificity test in the spring of 2020, while at the same time, Mossad, Epstein, Gates, Fauci, NIH, Wuhan, China, $15 to run the same specificities test for SARS-CoV-2 in the spring of 2020. So allowed to seed in and proliferate to build a case number. It's largely acting a 0.03% condition that's completely innocuous to most people, except over the age of 65-year-olds with pre-existing conditions, which is acutely and surgically and had been engineered to kill because it's an engineered virus. And so those people that asphyxiated to death that didn't hear about L-cysteine for the duration of the event were murdered. They were murdered. In the vaccine, of course, basic logic dictates that because we're ignoring a complete mitigating factor that's completely non-toxic and in the therapeutical pharmacopoeia that you can prescribe, there's no reason you're not prescribing it. Like I said, genocide. Monetize eugenics. So it's making money on intentional predictable death. So it's like Hitler that also makes money. And with no ideal. Because it's just doing it to everyone, not trying to make a Superman thing, right? So there's no precedent, zero precedent of trust for prismatic data systems, corporations separately, that are all necessarily now, of course, not separate at the data layer. So not separate companies. And their AI intent vector, while separate but equally, I would argue there's centralized filtration occurring at a central apparatus via hyper-advanced artificial intelligence on prismatic data systems, and not just AI on the separate companies, doing real-time filtration and modulation of all information in mind to a non-organic one end to create necessarily complexly autonomic organisms. That in long-form time, you see a refraction of sexuality off of two baselines, male-female, and in the far future, one little gray thing that is a devolved human and not an alien at all, and travels back in time to ensure its future fruitioning. Silicon, out of the backwash of the craft. Computers the size of a room. Computers the size of a desk. Computers the size of your hand. Stuxnet. The internet. Napster. Meta. Social media. So on Napster, I noticed, while I was in high school, I noticed this in class. You remember during Iraq, right? The Iraq invasion? This is the tell of Napster being an internal op to attack media on purpose. It's the first onslaught to take down whatever the organic zeitgeist is and replace it with a fake one. It's like you can't find this level of insanely violent stuff now if you looked for it necessarily on the organic interweb. You'd have to go to the deep dark web, and you'd probably end up in a jail cell if you saw it. But at that period of time during the 90s, when Napster was around, as was like to engineer mass public support around a long-term conjured conflict, that also see the BBC running on a script, an internal self-reflexive attack, and then using that to go across the sea and do stuff also, right? So, so the buildings, 9/11. Basic logic dictates buildings don't fall squarely onto their foundations given the variable way they were hit at such a high aperture on, you know, hit so high would have fallen chaotically, being that it wasn't a clean hit, both of them. Basic physics dictates it would have kind of been a goo-poo cascade, not so cleanly onto the foundation. It very obviously goes in levels. You can see all the conspiratorial videos for some of the proper logic, but not for all of it. But thermite. So did Navy SEALs run into the World Trade Center and put thermite all up and down it and then destroy it real quick? No, that's insane. So a contingency plan, and this isn't necessarily want to be known by a lot of people, for huge buildings, especially one in a financial district where they're surrounding other stuff that's of high value. You don't want the collateral damage of, say, if that building fell haphazardly at a tilt, leading Tower of Pisa on the other buildings. So, as a safety protocol, and you wouldn't tell anybody about this, you would simply have thermite in the building already strategically to bring it down. So, that's necessarily, it's already there. So that doesn't explain, like, well, that explains away the, who done it. No, it doesn't. So that was used by the people who did it, not, in the organic fashion that mitigates complicity. So they came from Saudi Arabia, and we invaded Iraq. Huh. The Saudis don't do that kind of thing. And I'm sure they thought that was very weird in the populist propaganda. So you have the visual event engineered, the visual of impact engineered on purpose. CIA injects and causes through back channel the planes to hit the buildings. Fred Smith controls the planes, right? Bush controls the trains, right? And it's easy. It's easy to engineer. And it's a controlled media, more or less. So we'll go to Bush Classroom 9/11.
Get ready to read all these words on this page without making a mistake. Look at the letter at the end and remember the sound it
So
makes.
George Bush is a terrorist.
Yes, type. Get ready to read this word the fast way. Get
They
ready.
know they're watching.
Yes, sound it out. Get ready. Sound it out. Get ready. What word? Yes, kid. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready.
So if anybody's familiar with psychology at all, what are archetypes? So this is like almost like a tongue-in-cheek dog and pony show, walking you through archetypal entourage of a very basic psychological nature, at children. It's like the theater of the lie. And it's like you can see him dancing around in his head in the event here. He's enjoying this theater, George. He's enjoying
What word?
it.
Steal. Yes, steal. Read these words the fast way. Get ready.
Play.
Yes, play. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready.
Kite.
Yes, kite. Get ready.
Kit.
Yes, kit. Get ready.
Steal.
Yes, steal. Get ready.
Play.
Yes, playing. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Boys and girls, pick your reader up from under your seat. Open your book up to lesson 60 on page 153.
Here's him in his ear, whispered in his ear. Can't see the micro expression necessarily.
At the count of 3, everyone should be on page 153. If the yellow paper is going to bother you, drop it. Thank you. Everybody touch the title of your story. Fingers under the title. Get ready to read the title, The Fast Way. We're waiting for one member. Thank you. Fingers under the title of the story. Get ready.
Go, let go.
Yes, the pets go. Fingers under the first word of the story. Get ready to read the story the fast way. Get ready.
Go, girl, ride, go, let's go.
Go on.
George opens the book.
To go, running with her, let's go.
Go on.
She played with her tail.
Try it again. Get ready from the beginning of that sentence. Get ready.
She played with her goat in her house.
Go on.
She played with her goat in her yard.
Good job. Go on.
But the goat did some things that made the girl sad.
Let's clean that up. Get ready. Try with but. Get ready.
But
There it was. So you're looking for 220 while they're chanting cat dog. If you've ever done doom scrolling on social media, dogs stay, cats run, right? Follow the dog, chase the cat. He thinks that's funny. There's a micro expression at 220.